I remember the first time I saw him like it was yesterday. The hallway was crowded, filled with the usual chaos of school life. Books slamming shut, sneakers squeaking against polished floors, and the constant hum of teenage voices blending into a familiar background noise. But none of that mattered when he walked in. Rowan. He wasn't the kind of boy who'd stand out in a crowd, not the tallest, not the loudest, but there was something about him. Maybe it was the way his eyes sparkled like they held secrets only I couldn't cover, or how his smile seemed to light up the dull gray walls of our school. I don't know. All I knew was that in that moment, everything around me faded. It was just me and him. Even if he didn't know it yet. I was 16, young, naive, and hopelessly romantic. I'd read all those love stories, watch the cheesy movies where the girl meets the boy, and everything falls into place. I believed in that kind of magic. I believed in forever. And for a while it felt like Rowan believed in it too. It started with the smallest of things. A glance exchanged during class. A casual "Hey, can I borrow your notes?" Followed by that smile, the one that made my heart race. Our conversations moved from schoolwork to late-night texts about dreams, fears, and everything in between. I remember one night vividly. It was almost midnight, and I was lying in bed staring at my phone, the glow of the screen reflecting in my eyes. "Do you believe in soulmates?" he texted. I stared at the message, my heart pounding. I hesitated for a moment before replying, "I think I do." His response came almost instantly. "I didn't, but then I met you." I swear in that moment I felt like I could float. His words wrapped around me like a warm blanket, and I let myself believe it. I let myself believe him. It wasn't long before he asked me out. A simple date, ice cream at the little shop near school. But to me it was everything. I spent hours picking out the right outfit, rehearsing what I'd say, how I'd act. But none of that mattered when I saw him waiting there, leaning against his bike, that same stupid smile on his face. "You look beautiful," he whispered when he saw me. And just like that, I was his. For months everything was perfect, or at least it seemed that way. We'd spend hours together, laughing at the silliest things, sharing secrets we promised no one else would ever know. He'd hold my hand like I was the most precious thing in the world, and I believed I was. I remember the first time he told me he loved me. We were at the park, lying under the stars, his jacket wrapped around my shoulders. The cool breeze danced through the trees. But I didn't feel cold, not with him beside me. Hey, he whispered, his voice barely audible over the rustling leaves. "I love you." I turned to him, my heart threatening to burst from my chest. "I love you too." And I meant it. But what I didn't know was that behind that perfect smile, Rowan was hiding something that would shatter me into pieces I never thought could be put back together. It started small. Missed calls, unanswered texts, excuses that didn't quite add up. "I was busy," you'd say, or "I didn't see your message." But the way his eyes darted away when I asked, the way his voice lost its warmth, it gnawed at me. Then there was her, Simran. I noticed her hanging around him more often, laughing at his jokes, touching his arm in ways that felt familiar. But Rowan assured me she's just a friend. I wanted to believe him. God, I needed to believe him. Because the alternative, the idea that he could betray me, was too painful to even consider. But the truth has a way of clawing its way to the surface, no matter how deep you try to bury it. It was a Friday evening when I found out. Mira, my best friend, had been acting strange all day. She kept glancing at me with this look in her eyes, pity mixed with something else I couldn't quite place. "What's wrong?" I finally asked, my voice barely a whisper. She hesitated, chewing on her lip before pulling out her phone. "I didn't want to be the one to tell you, but you deserve to know." She handed me her phone, and as my eyes scanned the screen, my heart stopped. It was a photo, Rowan and Simran, locked in an embrace, their lips pressed together in a kiss that should have been mine. For a moment I couldn't breathe. The world around me blurred, and all I could hear was the sound of my heart shattering into a million pieces. "No," I whispered, shaking my head. "This can't be real." But it was, and in that moment, the boy I thought I'd spent forever with became the boy who destroyed me. The days that followed were a blur of tears and sleepless nights. I replayed every moment in my head, searching for signs I might have missed, wondering what I did wrong. Was I not enough? Did I love him too much or not enough? The pain was suffocating, a constant weight on my chest that I couldn't shake. I stopped eating, stopped smiling. The girl who once believed in forever was gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize. But as the days turned into weeks, something inside me shifted. The pain didn't disappear, but it morphed into something else, something darker. Anger. Rowan hadn't just broken my heart. He'd made a fool of me, and I wasn't going to let him get away with it. If he thought he could shatter me and walk away unscathed, he was wrong. I would make him regret the day he ever met me. The first time I saw him after finding out, my heart didn't break. It burned. Rowan was standing by the lockers, laughing with his friends like nothing had happened. Like he hadn't torn my heart apart and left it bleeding on the floor. Simran was there too, her hand casually resting on his arm. Her giggle like nails on a chalkboard. I clenched my fists so hard my nails dug into my palms. The pain grounded me. It reminded me of who I was now, not the naive girl who believed in fairy tales, but someone stronger, someone who wouldn't let him win. "You okay?" Mira's voice pulled me back. She'd been by my side through it all, but even she didn't know what was brewing inside me. "I'm fine," I whispered, my eyes never leaving Rowan, but he won't be. That night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, I realized something. Revenge wasn't just about making him feel the pain I felt. It was about taking back control, showing him that he didn't own a single part of me anymore. And I had the perfect plan. Rowan had a weakness: his ego. He thrived on attention, on feeling like he was the center of everyone's universe. I'd given him that once, and now I'd use it against him. The next day, I walked into school with a smile on my face. Not the broken, forced one I'd worn for weeks, but a real smile, one that hid my true intentions. Rowan noticed. "Hey, NEA," he called out as if nothing had happened, as if he hadn't ripped my heart out and stomped on it. I turned to him, my eyes bright. "Hey, Rowan, how's everything?" He blinked, clearly surprised. He probably expected me to cry or ignore him. But instead, I acted like he was just another face in the crowd. "Did ya? Good," he mumbled, his confidence wavering for just a second. "Perfect." Over the next few days, I made sure to bump into him more often, casually chatting like we were old friends. I even laughed at his jokes, my heart steady and cold beneath the surface. And just like I predicted, he started to fall back into his old habits. The texts came first, then the late-night calls. He started asking if I wanted to hang out, if I missed him. I played along, feeding his ego, making him believe that I was still that same girl, waiting for him to come back. But I wasn't. After weeks of careful planning, the opportunity finally presented itself. Rowan invited me to a party, some big get-together at his friend's house. The kind of event where everyone from school would be there. He probably thought it'd be the perfect place to show off, to pretend we were working things out, like he was some hero saving the heartbroken girl. But I had other plans. Mira was in on it too. She wasn't a fan of the idea at first, worried I was going too far, but after everything Rowan had done, even she agreed he deserved a taste of his own medicine. "Are you sure about this?" she asked as we got ready that night, her voice filled with hesitation. I met her eyes in the mirror, my expression calm and steady. "I've never been more sure." We arrived at the party, the music pounding through the walls, the air thick with teenage bravado and cheap cologne. Rowan spotted me almost immediately, his face lighting up like he'd won some prize. "You came," he said, weaving through the crowd to get to me. "Of course," I replied, my smile sweet and innocent. I wouldn't miss it. We spent the evening together, laughing, talking, just like old times. But beneath every word, every glance, I was calculating my next move. And when the time was right, I struck. I waited until the party was in full swing, everyone buzzing from too much cheap beer and teenage drama. Rowan was holding my hand, leading me through the crowd when I pulled him aside, my voice soft and intimate. "There's something I need to show you," I whispered, leaning in close enough that he could feel my breath against his ear. His eyes darkened with curiosity, maybe even hope. He followed me without question, down the hall to an empty room, the door clicking shut behind us. "What is it?" he asked, his voice low, thinking this was some romantic moment. I pulled out my phone, my hands steady as I scrolled through the photos Mira had helped me collect over the past few weeks, pictures of Rowan and Simran. Their little secret not so secret anymore. I handed him the phone, watching as his face drained of color, his eyes widening in horror. "What the hell, ANEA? Trying to find an excuse, a lie, anything to cover his tracks. But I wasn't done. "Oh, I'm not mad about that," I said, my voice icy and calm. "I just wanted to make sure everyone else saw it too. I pressed a button, and the photos sent out to everyone at the party group chats, social media, everywhere. Within seconds, the sound of notifications filled the air, followed by gasps and whispers. The door burst open, and Simran stood there, her face pale as she stared at the phone in her hand. Rowan looked between us, his world crumbling around him. And I? Now you know how it feels, I whispered before walking out, leaving him in the mess he created. The days after the party were strange. For the first time in weeks, I felt free. The weight of betrayal, the sting of his lies, it all felt lighter now. People whispered, sure, some admired my boldness. Others called me crazy. Because I wasn't doing it for them. I did it for me. Rowan tried to reach out, of course. Text calls, even waiting outside my house once. But I ignored it all. He wasn't worth another second of my time. It wasn't just about revenge. It was about rediscovering who I was before Rowan. I started focusing on things I loved: painting, reading, spending time with Mira. I even joined the school's debate team. Something I always wanted to do but never had the courage for. The more I focused on myself, the more I realized that Rowan hadn't just cheated on me, he'd taken pieces of me that I was finally getting back. Months passed and life moved on. One day I bumped into Rowan at the park. He looked different, but confidence was gone, replaced by something softer, almost regretful. "Ania," he called out, approaching me cautiously. I turned, meeting his gaze without flinching. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry," he whispered, his voice sincere, "for everything." For a moment I saw the boy I'd once loved. But I also saw the pain he'd caused, the lessons I'd learned. "I forgive you," I said simply. "But that doesn't mean I'll forget." And with that I walked away, my heart lighter than it had been in a long time. Heartbreak had shattered me, but it also rebuilt me into someone stronger. I wasn't the naive girl who believed in fairy tales anymore. I was someone who knew love could hurt, but also that it could heal. And as I stood there, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and pink, I realized something important. I didn't need Rowan. I didn't need anyone to complete me. I was whole all on my own.